Hello, so today we are going to do this example UI, calculator UI using Compose. So it would be something like this, where we just show the panel here for the numbers and the operations we can do, and then we have this divider, and then we have this set of controls. So this one is just backspace to delete, and this one is to switch to another mode. This one is a ruler, and this one is to go back to the most recent input, right, that we inputted in the input here. And this is supposed to be the input field where, or the display where we show any number that you click on. Yeah, so pretty much this is the UI, and what we want to do is just to get it displayed like this using Compose. Yeah, so let's get started. So the first thing is to create a project using Compose. What I did here is just the first step is just to go into new project and select empty compose activity, and that's what I have here. And so this is our starting point, and now we need to just start building this UI. Okay. Okay, so let's get started here. So the first thing we want to do, we have our calculator UI here. We have a surface. What we want to start with is just replace this greeting with our calculator composable. And so we can delete this here, right? Or just replace it with calculator, right? We don't need any input, so let's just remove this. And then we don't need this, right? And then we can here just have our calculator for the preview. Okay, so what's the first step? What should we build first? So we need a way to display these components in a column. So we need first the table, and then the separator, and then the control. So to do that, let's just display a column first, and we need the modifier. So this would be here. We wanted to fill the max size, and then we want a vertical arrangement here that would need to be, yeah, we want to start from the bottom up, right? And so the first thing we want to have is the input display, right? So that would be here where we display any number you type it. And so that, let's call it input display. We'll create a composable for that. We'll implement it later. And then what do we need next? We need the controls, which is this portion here. So let's just, so I'll first just do this general structure and then go from there. And then we need, yeah, let's actually have it top down like this. And then after that, we need the divider, and then we need the table, right? So let's call this divider. And then let's call it main divider. Create our composable for it. And then go here. And then we need calculator. Let's call it calculator grid, which is the grid that shows all the input values. And so let's create composable for that as well. Okay, and now that we have these, let's start out by building the first, maybe the main part, the difficult part, which is the grid. So to do that, what we need, of course, here we need a column as well, and then inside the column we'll need a set of rows. So what we'll do is we have a row for each of these, and then they are aligned vertically, so we'll need a column for them. So to do that, let's have a column here. And then we need rows, right? But we need the definition of these. So these are pretty repetitive, right? We have each row has a value, and those values kind of are repetitive. What you need is the same style, the same UI, except like the color can change and the value can change, right? So we probably need some sort of a data structure to hold all of these values, right? So that's what we are going to define. So let's define a list of rows, maybe here. we'll start pretty simple, right? So let's start just with the text that we want. And let's start just with maybe, let's say the the 3 number rows, just to get something going. So we want the first row. So for the first row, I'm just going to do this one first, just to get something working. So we want 7, 8, 9. 7. So this would be a list of 8, 9. And then for the other one, let's just get started with 4, 5, 6. And we'll go from there, right? Okay, so let's do that first, and then we will need to here say the rows. We need to map each list here to a row. And so that's what we'll do here. But let's also, just to make this really easy to read, let's have a calculator row that we passed with the number, which is it, right? Which is the string here. And so let's call this the value, right? Or the values for the row. So that would be a list like this. And now for the row, we need to align them in a row, right? 7 and then 8 and then 9, similar to here. And so what we do here is we need to have a row, right? Let's import it. And then for that row, we want to take each value. So let's say values map. And then for each one, we want a button, and this button should have the same UI. And so let's just create a composable as well for that button. And so you can see it's really easy to do with these nested composables. So we can do calculator button, let's call it. And this here, what we get, let's call it label, right? These are the labels for the button. So let's pass it. And let's create a composable for the button. Okay. And now the button here, we can just use an outline button and then make it circular shape. And so that would be outline button. We need to do on click later. And now here, what we need to do is the shape first. So that would be, so we have on click. We need the shape to be a circle shape, right? Yeah, that's exactly what we are after here, a circular shape. And then we want a border stroke for the border, right? Yeah, it's slightly, it's very small, so let's just have 1 dp and make the color transparent, because yeah, that's what we are after in the UI. And so let's import this. And now we need a padding for the number. You can see it's centered here. So let's just start with padding equal to 18 dp. Yeah, so let's start first with just this. Let's display a text inside the button for the label. And so that would be text is equal to label. And then let's just choose a big font size. So let's go with 20 SP. Okay, so that's what we have so far. Now, just before going any further, let's try to see this in the preview. Okay, so now that we have all of these here, let's just do, so what we need is we need colors for these buttons here, right? And you can see here the colors are different. Sometimes it's red, and sometimes it's blue, and sometimes it's white, like the equal here. So we need for each label to have attached to it its color, and its color value and its label. And so we need to change our data structure here for the rows to be a data class for each one and have it have a color. The other thing is we have only 3 color variants, so let's just call the red one the main one because most of them have it, and then we can have this blue one be the variant 1 and this white one be the variant 2. And so to do that, so for the color first we need an enum for the 3 variant colors, so I'll just call it button color here, and then we need a data structure for the button spec, let's call it, and that would basically be 2 things. It would be the label, and then so let's call label actually text, and then we need the color, which is button color. Okay, and so now we need to change these row structure to be button color, button spec, and have it have the text equal to that, and then the color be, so for C it would be the main color, so let's just call it button color dot main. Okay, and we need to do the same thing for every button. And so I'll just pre-fill it here so that we don't have to do it manually. So we have the color attached to each one. So for example, parentheses needs to have this blue color, so let's call it variant 1 color, and then equal needs to have the white one, the variant 2 color, right? Okay, so now that we did that, we need to change calculator row to have these to pass the button spec. So we have here button spec, right? And we need to pass that here to calculator row, and here sorry, actually not to calculator row, this is still values, it's to the calculator button that we need to change what we pass. But here it's actually button spec, and so let's call it here button specs. That's what we pass. And then for the calculator row as well, this is a button spec now, and that's what we pass here. And then here, this is a button spec now, and let's use the same name. And now the text takes text. Maybe we rename this to label. Okay. And now that we have that, we need to use the color, right? So let's use the color that we have in button spec. But the color is an enum, so we need to get the value. And so let's just create an extension function here. So let's just create okay, so we needed to return to us a color, and we needed to go through the enum values and then return us the color for the right color value. And so let's just add all the branches. And so for main color, which is this reddish, I'll just copy the value. I'll use this color EHCL. And this is, by the way, just a color here with this is an experimentation API, so I'll just add that. And then for the other 2 colors, so the variant color 1, it's this one, and then the variant color, the last one is just for this equal, which is white, so we can just use that here. Okay, so now that we have the color for each one, we should have it here. Let's refresh and see what gets displayed. Okay, so now this is great. Now you can see it kind of has a structure similar to what we want. Here, the colors are matching. Now, one thing we need to do is, you can see the circle here has a different background. So we need to update the background as well. And all of them they don't, not all of them have the same background. You can see the equal has a different background. So that tells us that we need to have the button spec also define a background maybe for us. Yes, so one thing we can do, since this is the main color and we know we only need variant 2 color to change the background, we may avoid having a second field in button spec and just get the background color based on these variants here. And so what we can do here is we need to assign a background color to the button. And so to do that, we'll just say colors. And then the way to do it for an outlined button is to do button defaults, outlined button colors, and then we are going to replace the background only the background color. So I'll just take button spec and then get the background color, similar to what we did for text color. Background color. And here we need an extension function. And then we will do a similar thing we did here. We will do a pattern matching, and we will do for each one, we'll just pass the color. So both the main color and the variant color, right? The C here and the parentheses have the same background color. So for these two, let's just have the same color, which here I'll just copy the desired value, which is this one. And similar thing, we are using an experimental API here. And then for the variant color, also the value, which variant 2, which is for the equal here, we want it to be bluish. And so let's just use the same color as here, right? And now let's try this. Okay, so you can see this is slightly similar. Yeah, maybe this one is a little bit bolder than this one, but that's fine. So yeah, I think our calculator now is in a good shape. Now let's add the divider. Okay, so let's go to our divider and let's add it. We are going bottom up. And so for our divider, we can just use composes divider, right? Which takes a modifier, right? We want it to fill max width, right? And we want it to have the same pairing as the calculator grid, right? So that they are aligned like here, right? And then we want the color for the divider to be blackish. So let's just give it black. And then we want the thickness to be just, yeah, not too big. So let's just use 0.5 dp. Okay. And let's see what happens here. And that's somewhat similar to what we want. Maybe we want to reduce the thickness to 3. Or maybe even 1. Let's see. Yeah, 1 is not very visible, so let's just pick a bigger value. Still not very visible, so let's just use 4. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Now with that divider, we need to add the controls. So let's just add our controls as well. Okay, so for our controls, we need a row, right? Because it's these 4 values. So let's do a row, right? And then the modifier will need to be to fill width. And then we need the padding as well, similar to the padding that we did for the grid. So, but it's a little bit bigger. So let's add maybe 24. So padding 24.dp. Okay. And then we want a similar arrangement like here. We wanted to take the full width, but we want spacing in between them. So let's just say horizontal arrangement to be arrangement space between. And now we need to define the content, right? Yeah. So let's have you can see like all of them have the same kind of padding, the same sort of structure. We just need to pass in the icon, right? And so let's have a composable for each of these control. So let's call it control icon, and let's start with just maybe the recent, which is this one here, right? And so to do that, well, we need control icon, and we need to pass the drawable, and then the so let's call it drawable, and then we need to pass, so the first one we will use is recent drawable, and then we need a label, because for an image view we need a description, so let's just call it recent. We can later on use a string resource. Okay, so let's create this composable control icon. So it needs drawable, which is of type drawable. And then we need this here, which let's call it label. Okay. And now what do we use? We can just use here icon. We use painter to draw the drawable. Okay. Let's import our icon here. Compose icon. And we want the content description to be a label. Okay. What else do we need? So this is composable control icon. Yeah, so here we want to remember drawable painter. That's the so this is drawable painter. So Compose doesn't have by default this drawable painter that allows us to easily draw a painter, but a company's library has it. So let's add that library to our Gradle. Okay, so let's go here to our Gradle, and let's add this library. Okay, let's sync. Okay, so hopefully in a second it should be available. Yes, okay, cool. So now we can use it, and it just takes the drawable, right? Okay. Okay, so now with that, we should be able to have our control icon. Now we need to define the recent drawable here, right? So we just use context compat to get the drawable, and we will add the icon to our resources here. So to get the context, we can just use local context.current, and now we need our drawable, which I'll call it outline recent, and I'll import it here into our drawable folder. So if we go here, drawable, let's just add it. Cool. So we have it. Oh, this is the recent one. Yep, this is the recent one, which is this one. Yep. Actually, this is the backspace one. So let's add the recent one. So if we do that, and we need our backspace one back. Cool. And we need also the recent one. Cool. And then, yeah, I'll just add all of the buttons that we need. So, yeah. Okay. That we need for the control. Okay, so now if we go here, we can get our recent drawable and just pass it. Cool. Now it seems like we have an error here. Let's see. So we have a divider. This is in the main divider. I shouldn't add it in the main divider. We want to add it to this row here, right? So that's what we are after. So our recent drawable needs to be defined here in the controls. Okay, so you can see now we have this recent icon one. Now let's just add the other ones. So we need, first we need after the recent one, we need the ruler one. So let's call it ruler drawable. And then we need to define the drawable. So let's just add that. And then we need the one for backspace as well, the drawable for backspace. And then we need the drawable for switching the mode, which is this one here, right? Okay, so now that we have all of the drawables we need, we can just add them. So we need switch mode to be the last one in this row here. And then before ruler, we want the recent drawable. And then afterwards, we want backspace here. So let's call it backspace drawable, and let's just replace the labels to be correct. So here, switch to advanced mode, let's call it. And we have ruler and we have recent here. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, so we have them, but they are aligned with the same distance. What we want is we want these to be aligned close to each other, and then we want a big space, and then we want this one. So it sounds like maybe we can divide this into 2 sub rows. So we have a row just for these, and then a row just for this one. This one doesn't need to be a row. It can be in the this row, and then we would have a smaller row just for these, right? So to do that, what we can do is a row here, align it like this, right? And then leave this one here, because it would needs to be to the far right. And now with these 3, what do we need to give the row for them to be aligned in this way? So what we can do first is give it a modifier and specify the width. So to limit it so that if we give the entire width, then they will space out between each other because of this to fill the entire thing. So what I want is to limit the spacing just for these 3. Let's say let's experiment with 100 width. So fill, so dot width is 100.dp. Okay. And then we want the horizontal arrangement to be arrangement space between, even inside this row, right? So that they have the same equal spacing between them, right? So if we do that, you can see this is similar to what we are after here, right? Okay, so now that we add that spacing, let's see here. We have the fill width. Now we need to fill our input display, which is here. So let's do that. So that's just an edit text, right? And so what we want is we want a text. And we want it to take also the full width, right? So modifier equal to modifier dot padding. We want 24 dp to match the controls and the calculator grid. And just to show that it contains the value, let's add 0 by default as a default value. And what we want is to align it to the left side, to the far right. So we want to align it to the end. So let's call it text align here. And let's align it to the end. In a calculator, it's usually here in the far right that we display a value. So that's what we're doing here. And we wanted to display big with this big input so that it's really visible. So let's increase the font size for that. Let's say 56.dp maybe. And let's see, we want the fill max width here. Yeah, so the problem we have here is font size needs to be SP, and that should work. Let's run this. Cool. And so we have the value displayed. Let's see. So seems like everything looks good. We have these values here with these colors, and then we have the equal looks similar. Yeah, so that's pretty much, I think, it for this video. Maybe in the next videos we will improve on this a little bit and move this to the view model. So stay tuned, and yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.